We have a Hilltop Institute that studies on aging and disabilities. The New Media Studio has done storytelling. We have a Wisdom Institute that includes older faculty, retired faculty. And then there's projects that look at workforce and long-term care, aging effects on Drosophila. You may have not known that, but Jeff Lepix does walking studies of Drosophila. And as they age, he records how they walk slower. And then beginning to think about what are those effects there. So there's also sensors and smart homes work that's done in computer engineering, computer science, the human-centered. So all this to say we do this already, which is why we're trying to endorse and embrace these principles. Next steps. So again, I'm going out to all the shared governance bodies on campus, and we're looking for endorsement of these principles. We'll then seek the president's endorsement, do an age-friendly university application. There's actually no cost for that currently. There's about 25 universities in the US that currently do this, about 100 worldwide. We'd be the first here in Maryland to adopt these. And then once we do become an age-friendly university, we'd have a working group to begin to think about our aspirational goals. So what is it we want to do? How do we want to train students and become a leader in this area? So with that, let me put up the principles. So again, I'm happy to send these electronically. But essentially, again, it's how are we including older adults in our university. Questions about this?
So on a practical level, what does this look like, I guess, as far as applying the university principles to the school?
Right. So a couple ways. So again, I would like to see an age-friendly kind of work group form based on these principles, and then begin to say, well, what do we want to do as UMBC? What's our culture? What's our identity? Do we want to focus on age-friendliness and research? Do we want to focus on community engagement? Which part of it? So it's really kind of up to the university to begin. I mean, what these principles do is really kind of raise awareness and say, hey, we need to think about this. We know there's 72 million older adults here, and then again, we can go worldwide in issues. So again, it's a way to raise awareness and say, hey, how can we really kind of prepare students to go out and say, hey, I'm going to have customers that are older. My parents are going to get older. They have parents. So on a practical level, it's good to be forming a working group and then beginning to build on what we already do. Right? So we have these kind of things in place already. We want to kind of embrace that or embrace that and then build.
So for the intergenerational learning, I think that's really interesting. How would you envision that having the ideas?
Okay, so that could be a variety of ways. So it could be having groups of older adults come into classrooms. So I could imagine a history class getting together with Charlestown, and having a group of older adults who lived through a historical event come and do some intergenerational learning that way. It could be working with a daycare center and having multiple generations kind of go and do a story time, a reading type of thing. Get together that way. So again, kind of bringing people together. Another idea I have is to have older adults come in and cook with students. So come out, have them come in, get a kitchen space, and prepare meals from different cultures, but have that intergenerational. So older adults have a long history with food. Students like to eat generally. So I thought that's another example where it kind of intergenerational learning or intergenerational kind of experiences.
Does this kind of confront the issue perhaps of excessive facilities? Because I know that some people with mobility disabilities may have trouble navigating our campus, which is located on a hill and has limited accessibility. Right?
Yep. So this would be another way to kind of embrace that issue and say, you know what? If we want to have intergenerationalists, we want to bring people to campus, the mobility issues is also an issue there. So that could also be another way to kind of address that issue to say, this is one of our principles. We've endorsed these, yet we still have these accessibility issues. So absolutely good.
So when you talk about older adults, do you mean like older adults that are students on campus, or us interacting with older adults in like the community?
So all of that. So oftentimes we think when I do a presentation like this, people say, well, does that mean we're going to have more older people in our classes? Is that what it's all about? And the answer is yes, older adults would be welcome to be in classes, but it's much more than that, right? So that's why I bring up kind of the intergenerationalness, the life course, because it could be engineering students studying how do we make better sensors for somebody with cognitive impairment, or to recognize whether somebody's having more cognitive impairment and they're not eating their meals, right? So I've seen a project where they put RFIDs on silverware to see if somebody is actually using their silverware or opening their refrigerator. So kind of people who are remote. So that's a way. So that's not bringing people into campus, but it's again raising awareness. So we're trying to again be broad with these principles.
So for us to endorse these, how would you do that?
Yep.
What are you asking for?
Well, so what I'm asking for is a vote or a resolution to say, so we see these principles that the Senate endorses these principles and says, yes, we want to let. So I'll be going to President Hrabowski eventually and saying, I've talked to the Senates, they have endorsed them, or as many Senates as can, they've endorsed these principles.
Okay.
So essentially it's again the set of principles, and then Freeman would then write a letter to the Age-Friendly University organization in Dublin, and then they would say, okay, you're in. Right? So go and do what you want to do. So then it's up to us to then take that and do something with it. So. But for me, it's important for all the shared governance units to kind of say, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is, this is something that that makes sense to us as an institution. So.
So for the online education opportunities for older adults, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. So that would be kind of looking at our offerings and saying, are they accessible? So this kind of gets back to that accessibility issue: is are our online offerings accessible to really kind of any people? So it's kind of universal design ideas. So we oftentimes also say in this area, so good design for older adults is good design for anybody, right? Anybody would like to have a clear core and online class. So that would be what that principle would be. It could also be maybe what we want to do tailored courses to older adults as a community engagement thing. Where we would say, hey, older adults may want to know something about caregiving or aging in place. So maybe we put something online that educates people about that. Could be about financial abuse, financial literacy.
Can you, the number 7, you mentioned the longevity dividend. Can you explain that?
Sure, yeah. So the longevity dividend says, well, as these people age, so what's the benefit of having 72 million people who are older? So that longevity dividend says, well, we have more people who have a lot more experience, for example, in the workplace. So how are we taking advantage of that? Are we saying, do we have policies in place that just say, you need to retire and you're done? Or are we doing more flexible retirement? Or are we changing things to take advantage of this large population? Right? So people may want more flexibility in work, and that longevity dividend says, let's take advantage of these old people who are here and make sure that we're using their resources and their experience to the best of our abilities. So I'm out of time?
Yeah, you're out of time. Is there any time frame that you'd like to have the resolution?
I'd like to by May, kind of early May. So I got kind of 2-3 weeks to get it together, and then I'm hoping to go to the president by mid-May and then make that. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'd be happy to answer those. And I'll send another copy of this electronically. I think I sent it to you one time, but if you want it again, I can send it to you again. So.
Yeah, I have it.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again for your time. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I got you out. Sorry. All right, thanks.
Look at that video.
It's been a long day.
So fresh.
All right, so
I'll get it done by
that concludes the presentation. So we can have a discussion about that next meeting and potentially have some legislation if we are interested in. Yeah, so next we have just updates. So we didn't have any SGC updates this week, interestingly. So we're just going to go right into initiative updates. Okay. So again, try to keep it under a minute for whatever, just whatever you got done this week, and then whatever you're working toward for next week. Okay. And Lashana.
So this week, Saturday, and we should be meeting with Lauren from Food Essentials. Yeah, that's what I have. And with Kelechi, we should be emailing professors to work with us on the panel for the program.
I know two professors, one from the sociology department and one from the psychology department. They reached back to me and basically they're going to be like potential panelists for the event. But you just need to add like actual details like dates and cases and stuff, so that I can like tell them so they can meet put in the schedule. Yeah.
So you guys just trying to find a date at this point?
Yeah.
And then, Kelechi, do you want to just expand? Do you want to just expand on your initiatives?
Yeah, so we're working on finding the date, time, location. Like we all have like potential, we have a potential date, time, and location. We're just trying to get that like, I guess, in writing and stuff like that. Yeah, trying to get it reserved. And I'm trying to see if I can schedule a meeting with Aaron so that we can talk more about it. I'm gonna see if we can possibly do like weekly meetings where we can do like updates with one another. And we're also working to professors. Yeah, panelists.
And for the working to find the location, right?
Yeah.
Make that your top priority.
Okay.
Because you need to get that ironed out. Patrick?
So unfortunately I'll be out of town on Thursday for the meeting with like the subcommittee of the SAC on police reform. So I don't have anything planned like in the near term. Hopefully shut that back up before I get back next week. But I was there's going to be the article that I talked to the trooper about for basically kind of reporting on this, getting some publicity around it, so people kind of know what we're doing, what we hope to be doing. Hopefully the police read it as well and kind of like get a little bit of understanding that we've already established with them, but so they can see like we're serious about it and we want it to follow through for sure.
Are you still doing the event in the Breeze one?
I would like to sit down with them before that, so that won't happen until next week. At the earliest, but it hasn't been discussed yet.
Like you didn't talk. Have you?
There was a meeting that was on the books that was canceled by the leader of the subcommittee, just because she was out of town and two of the other members of the committee were out of town. So it was I kind of got like stutter step there where it's like I'm not here for this week's, and then last week got canceled. So that's why I said like next week it should start making motion.
We'll send out at least an email suggesting the plan and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Brandon.
Previously, Sean and I had met with machinery from transfer students, and last week I followed up with Connor, who was one of the transfer peer facilitators, And so I talked with him about what his experience was like doing the transfer, like first year experience class, stuff like that. I'm planning to meet this week with Tasneem on behalf of international students and Timmy on behalf of students with disabilities. And yeah.
Yeah, so me and Michelle, we have a meeting tomorrow for the Bureau Essentials around 2 p.m. And I'm thinking about proposing probably that we organize like a fundraiser for the materials that we're going to need for the pantry, and also ironing out the details of where the pantry will be on campus and who I need to meet with to further discuss that. Right now, they're planning on getting space in the rack, so we're just gonna put details out about that.
So I met with Brittany Brown last week, and we discussed the event, and so we couldn't get the space reserved, so we have to set it back a week. But it's going to be in our commons right now. I'm submitting the form for catering, the call, and the card, and then
So for funds? For catering?
the third form for the admission.
Oh, what, did you get one?
Yeah.
I think we passed that. When did this pass legislation?
Out of the initiative, out of the Senate initiative.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
And we have several activities for it right now. So Josue and one boy met with Dan Marquardt, and he recommended talking to academic advising to get a more interdisciplinary view, because that's what the event will be encouraging, is interdisciplinary. And it's called Stratify, which is a personality or extended test that we have that helps you guide your way through like the major which you should be thinking was the curriculum. Okay.
Yeah, so this is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have your initiative plans, I'd like to get those too right now. You guys put those out.
Mine is downstairs, probably up here.
It was going to be next week, and now it's probably going to be. No, because we really don't want to put a date on that.
Do you have any?
There's UGC Thursday. Is there something on Friday? Or is it?
Both sides.
No, so UGC is on.
Pretty good on board.
Thursday.
So they're very good at getting the message to come. Yeah, so they're
I was it's a good time. I actually
really are harder to make come.
Oh, no, I'm not at
Guys, thank you all for filling out these.
Yeah, I'm out of town. But if you,
Thank you all for filling out these agendas. Okay, so or these plans. I'll get these back to you guys for next meeting, or I'll put it in your mailbox. What would you guys prefer? Mailboxes or meeting? Meeting. Okay, cool. Next meeting. And then next on the agenda, does anybody have any communications items that they'd like to be sent out?
real quick, there was some information sent out, this one, and I already talked to Jay about this, it's not like I'm not upset about it, but like, the information that was sent out about the SGAC was just incorrect. It wasn't you, but just like making sure that we make sure we get like the right information. And like I'm sure it was just like a quick oversight. It's not a big deal. But I just want to make sure that we make sure we have the right information going out, especially when it's emailed out like that in my UMBC. But I love this the format that it was in on the group. So.
But yeah, that was partly my fault, because like I said, I checked over that and I had to see it. So.
No.
Sorry about that. But, no, it was most reasonable. So, but then also, could you emphasize the town hall again, which is next week? So, yeah, public forum. That's it. Public forum.
Public town hall.
Anybody else have anything? No. All right. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
All right.
Cool. All right, so up next, we have our new business section, student presentation. We've Nate giving us a presentation on
I got some stuff to hand out. There's not enough for everyone. It's the snazzy newest and hopefully final edition of the petition. So people are going to have to share, I'm afraid. I ran out of paper.
so yeah.
All right, I'm hoping to just go over pretty briefly the petition and discuss. Yeah, it's not like a PowerPoint or anything. I'm mostly just going to try to give you the background, give you what the petition hopes to accomplish, and kind of field any questions anybody wants to ask about it. So the background of the petition is basically, as some of you may know, I ran for SGA president and was disqualified. The disqualification, a little bit messy, took a while for it to be final. And in that process, I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people, which was very negative towards the SGA, accusing the SGA of a number of things, which I wouldn't go as far to accuse you guys of, although I am, like, you know, it's no secret that I've been critical of the SGA in the past, but, like, some of the stuff that I was getting was conspiracy theories and, like, claims that you're all terrible people and, like, evil, corrupt. It's not true, but it's, I think, reflective of a certain sentiment on campus that I feel should be addressed constructively. So I feel like, from what I've gotten from feedback, is a lot of people feel like there is a tendency in the SGA to push back against participation from students outside of sort of SGA circles. And then there's a larger sentiment on campus where people just don't know anything at all about the SGA. And I feel like hopefully this petition could perhaps address both of those. The idea of the petition is to kind of address the fact that, like, participation in SGA elections in recent years has been below 5% of the possible voting body, which is not healthy, it's not sustainable. I certainly won't be able to tell until the election that's currently scheduled to runs whether or not for sure it will be any better or worse, but it certainly seems to me that it's not going to be much better. This wasn't scientific at all, but one day, just to see kind of how people were feeling, I went out to the breezeway during, like, free hour, and I asked a few dozen people, like, hey, do you know who's running for SGA president? And out of, like, less than 40, but, like, a few dozen folks, no one could name anyone who was running for president, which seems to me to be indicative of nothing less than a crisis. So this petition hopes that perhaps by recognizing that the current election will not get the sort of participation that is wanted for a healthy, robust SGA, while also perhaps by accident or on purpose continuing an idea that people can't come to the SGA and hope to like have a fair chance at participating. Essentially, what I hope is that we could extend the election to the end of the month, perhaps the beginning of next month, and in that time allow for perhaps new candidates to be drawn and more campaigning to be had. Because at the moment, people just don't know enough about the SGA elections, or they don't care enough, or they feel like they're not represented, or they feel like they can't be represented. I feel like this would be an act of good faith on the SGA's part to reach out and say, hey, campus, we hear that you're feeling disenfranchised, and so we're going to take every possible step to ensure enfranchisement. So that's the ideas behind the petition. The sort of actual nuts and bolts is that there would be several advisements and resolutions attached to the petition. The advisements are basically asking this body or the election board or the finance board to schedule a special election as described in the Constitution and election policy guiding documents. But failure to do so to ensure that people are still being heard, even if such an election would not be possible. It would add a yes or no question to the ballot in line with the petition section of the Constitution, which would simply ask, do you support the UMBC Student Government Association? To kind of just gauge, get it out there, whether or not students on campus actually feel like the SGA represents them. This most recent edition of the petition has also added a couple of constitutional amendments, understanding that time frames are getting short and perhaps those first advisements might not be possible relatively soon. The amendments would see essentially elections not being, in future, not being legitimate unless they achieve 5% of the eligible vote, which a lot of other things in the Constitution cites 5% as like the rate at which, say, a petition for an impeachment can be considered, or petitions at all to be considered. Oh, to be clear, I'm just introducing the petition here. I'm not officially submitting it or anything. I just wanted you all to see it before it got submitted so you weren't blindsided by it if it came up like in a week or two. I went on a bit longer than I anticipated. Yes?
Real quick, do you know off the top of your head, like, I don't know if you know, like, what's 5% of the UMBC?
560-ish people.
Right.
Not a huge number. We have 11,000 folks on campus. Currently, this petition is sitting around 300 signatures, but it's slowed down recently just a bit. Yes.
Is that the online version that has been in signatures?
No. The online version actually has relatively few. It only has like 40.
Okay.
Most of that is on paper.
Okay.
Yes.
So you vetted this petition, correct? You vetted your petition?
Vetted?
Edited?
Edited, yes.
And so you have 300 signatures for your edited petition?
So, from what I saw of the Constitution, and as the petition would be considered, it didn't say anything against editing petitions. I'm sure if the petition was completely changed to direction totally, this was more of adding points to make it more relevant in as the situation progresses.
15 minutes.
Do you recognize me? Are you recognized or not?
Oh, he's
Okay.
Yes.
So I
you were to sign something and then someone were to change the terms of signing, would you feel as though, I mean, like, if I were to sign something and somebody changed it without even reviewing it, would you feel as though my signature was invalid?
And if that's the feeling of the body, I can throw out the signatures I got beforehand and just get more. It would take more time, but I could do that.
Yeah, nothing to notify.
Okay.
I sort of put that.
In your opinion, you said you would like to see extended to increase enfranchisement. Like, how do you think that that could impact it? Like, what's the situation that could impact it?
In terms of enfranchisement?
Yeah, like how would get more of the word out in that time period?
I think simply by the SGA agreeing to do this, it would show, like, so the current perception is if somebody came, say, to a Senate meeting with a petition saying, hey, people are unhappy with what you're doing, please take steps to address it. The feeling is that you'd be like, ha ha ha, no, go away. I think just by virtue of not doing that, it kind of gets rid of a lot of weird conspiracies that have been popping up recently. Sure. So on top of that, I think having more competitive elections would certainly increase involvement. Like, as it stands, a lot of people won't vote just because they assume that whoever's running will just be appointed. Why vote if you can't vote for anyone aside from the one person running? So yeah, that's the two biggest points I think that will increase effectiveness.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So if anybody wants another one, I have this copy.
All right, well, that's our last agenda item. So with that, we're going to move into announcements. Anybody have any announcements?
Okay, so actually, hold on, I need to check this date real quick. So give me 1 second.
All right, kids.
Oh, I'm not ready. I thought he was ready.
Well, I guess I'm sorry. There will be like a festival to end hunger on Erickson Field. It's going to be really cool. Help End Hunger Carnival on Erickson Field. Actually, that's a little further away than I thought. April 24th. So that will be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be part of, I think, the UMBC UNICEF Club is putting on. It'll be pretty cool if you get a chance. Please come out. It's a really good cause, and I know like every bit of support will definitely go a long way. So it is the 24th of April, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it'll be like Wednesday. Yeah, so if you're on the way to class, and or if it's possible for you guys to like stop by, please stop by.
She said it's being done at UNICEF.
Yeah, UMBC UNICEF Club. And also Sodexo, which is I think it's a rival to Charles.
Oh,
Yes.
oh.
Yeah, which is Eric. So they're all called.
Okay, so I would invite you all and everyone on the live stream to the leader shop session that is happening this Wednesday called Leading Without a Title. It is on Wednesday, April 10th, from noon to 1 in the Commons 332. And it is a workshop that focuses on how you can take on leadership without a title, and understanding that you have agency even if you don't have a position. And it is being presented by your very own Dave Pottenberg. So if you would like to go to that, Zane is putting it on, and there will, as always, be pizza for attendees. So if you have any questions or want to actually know when that is, let me know.
Wednesday from 4:30 to 6, there's a retriever Immigrants United open mic speak out from So at the sports zone, Wednesday, 4:30 to 6. I'm inviting students and anyone who identifies with or allies with immigrant diaspora and the community speak up on Wednesday. And then also pick back the night is the next Wednesday, April 18th.
Was it take back the night next Thursday, the 18th?
It's 18th, whatever day the 18th is.
So last week, Finance Board passed the final version of the budgetary statute, very exciting. And then Finance Board reform is active right now. So they're currently in the stage of doing workshops in informing student organizations of what submitting budgets is going to look like and that whole process. So if you're interested, the workshops start on Wednesday. So I can send it up on Slack. But it would be cool to see there.
Have you made individual events for all of that?
Yes, and I can add set to them.
I mean, at my UMBC.
Yes,
Okay.
on my UMBC and school calendar.
Anybody else? Alright, well then, attendance meeting at 6:15, 16.
Oh, did you miss one minute?